Welcome to the Financial Coaches Podcast, where we talk about how to build your practice from startup to scale up while being the kind of coach your clients crave. Finally, a podcast for financial coaches. Here are your hosts, Maria Casillas and Cody Sizemore.
Hello and welcome back to the Financial Coaches Podcast. My name is Cody Sizemore, and I'm joined here by my lovely co-host, Maria Casillas. And we have a topic that we're going to be talking with you guys today that we've already talked about before, but quite frankly, that was like 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago. It's crazy that we've been doing this for that long.
It is crazy. And I'm sure we've alluded to it also, but to your point.
Yeah. But I'm really excited to talk about it because it's something that's really important. In fact, it might be one of the most important things for your clients to find as well. But before we get into that, I want to say a few things. Number one, if this is your not first time, not second time, not third time listening, but you've been listening every single week for a long time, we just want to say thank you to you because you are what we call our every weekers. And you guys are like the reason that we keep showing up here. Because honestly, if no one was listening, we'd be like, I don't know why we're even doing this. So thank you for doing that. And if this is your first time listening, welcome aboard. We're happy to have you. And, we would love to connect with all of you guys on a deeper level. And there's a few different ways that you can do that. Number one is just joining our Facebook group, and that is called the Financial Coaches Community by New Money Habits. It's free to join. All you have to do is just answer a couple questions and make sure, that you follow the rules to where you're just being nice to each other and all that kinds of stuff. But we have a lot of cool things coming up in the pipeline that we are going to be sharing with you guys to give you guys even more value. And you can find it all within that Facebook group. So make sure that you join that if you haven't yet. And then beyond that, if you are a new listener, whether it be today or you've been listening for a couple weeks now or something like that, and you're also a new coach or an aspiring coach, and you're wanting to find ways to get started with this whole process, we have good news for you, and you are in luck because we actually created a program, and it's a self-guided program, online program, simply called Getting Started as a Financial Coach. And if you're interested in learning more about that, you can click the link in the show notes to watch a free webinar to learn a little bit more about what that looks like, what it's all about. And then, of course, if you're interested, you can enroll into it. No pressure, but hey, it's an option for you. So check it out. It doesn't hurt to, look into things and finally get this thing off the ground. So with all that being said, Maria, I want to welcome you in. How are you feeling today?
Thank you, sir. As good as I'm going to be today.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Still coming off that sickness. Right?
Yep. A little bit.
Okay.
But like I said last week, the mute button is there for a reason. So I'll use it. I promise.
Yep. Okie dokie. Well, we hope that you get better soon.
Thank you, sir.
It's never fun being sick. It's never fun. So
no, it's not.
Okay. Well, what we would like to talk about today with these lovely listeners is actually helping clients find their why. So I'm going to open this up, and I actually want to hear from you. But Maria, 2 questions for you in this topic. Number one, to you, what does helping your clients find their why mean to you? And then also, what do you think that it means to the clients as well?
Good questions. Okay, so I would say that to me, helping them find their why is helping them to identify what is the driving force that's making them want to make a change. So, usually change doesn't happen unless we're feeling some sense of pain, and change sucks whether you're feeling pain or not. Like just the idea of changing, it really can be scary for people. And so I think for me, helping them identify what is it that is causing them so much discomfort that is making them want to do something, but then recognizing that it's the reason for that desire is because it's out of alignment with what's truly important to them. So getting that more aligned. So I do think that the idea of finding your why sounds kind of formulaic and maybe even a little bit archaic. But if we recognize that it's identifying what do they actually want? What is really important to them? And how is that not aligned with where they are right now? To me, that's what it feels like. That's what I like to think of it as.
Yeah, I like how you made the transition from what's the thing that's hurting you the most, I guess you could say, now, and how do we get from there to the thing that we desire the most as well, that's going to be serving us, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because that's a really important thing. I think that sometimes when we think about this concept of finding our why, we put a lot of focus on trying to get away from the things that we don't like, which makes sense on the surface. But I don't know about you, but it's always been really difficult for me to accomplish any sort of larger goal if my main focus is trying to get away from something, versus trying to go towards something that's really good for me, or it's exciting for me, or something I can build, kind of thing.
Well, that makes perfect sense, because if you say that you're trying to get away from something, your focus is still on the something that you're trying to get away from. So that just psychologically, that makes sense that it'd be more difficult for you to do that. But because it's the thing that makes us seek out, like that's what that whole fight or flight response in us, it is the thing that makes us go, crap, I need to go do something different. It's the thing that we can more easily identify. If we can help somebody understand what about that is out of alignment with what they actually want, they might actually be able to be more readily readily able to identify what it is they want. I think as human beings, sometimes we know what we don't want, but we really don't know what we want. It's hard. It sounds really weird, but we don't always have a sense of what it is we're trying to go towards. What were we created for? What do we actually desire? What do we actually value? A lot of times that takes some time. And so I like to use the information that's there to help us find the information we're after.
Yeah, that reminds me of like a little saying that I say a decent amount of times. And that is, in life, there are things that we know that we know. There are things that we know that we don't know. But then there are also things that we don't know as well.
Yep.
And that last one, that's the tricky one.
Yeah.
That's the tricky one.
Yeah, because you don't know what you don't know. That's right. Yeah.
Right. So I think that it's also important to kind of talk about like why finding this why is so important. And I know that you're going to have different viewpoints on this because it is so multi-layered, but I think that one of the main reasons that I think it's really important is because, like, let's face it, if we're trying to help our clients, get themselves out of debt, let's just say, right? That might be a couple years of a process. It could be a year, it could be 5 years, it could be something in between, but it's going to be a longer period of time. And with anything that takes some time to work through and accomplish, more than likely, at some point, something's going to happen. In the sense of like, it could be like an external thing. Maybe it's a job loss. Maybe they get, their car breaks down. Maybe they're just exhausted because they're doing all this overtime or whatever it might be. Or maybe it just becomes boring. Like the first 3 or 4 months, it was new, it was exciting. But then it just becomes lackluster. It's just something that you're doing. You've gotten some results, but you haven't gotten the result quite yet. And, that fire or that motivation, as we've said numerous times, starts to go away, kind of thing. And you need something during those moments, whether it be from the lackluster, whether it be from the setback or whatever it might be. But you need something that's going to reignite that fire in you over and over and over again, so that no matter what happens or matter what doesn't happen, that you just keep going. Right? And that's the difference between the motivation and the consistency side of things that we've talked about numerous times on this podcast. Right? So I think that that's one of the reasons as to why this is so powerful, because it kind of helps change things from being something that like clients will get some temporary results with, to instead something that they actually see through to completion, and it almost becomes like a permanent result that they can then build off of for years and years and years to come.
Yeah, I agree. Which brings me to the answer of your second question, which was what do I think clients think that this whole find your why thing is? And I obviously every client is different, but I would believe that most clients, when they hear this, they do go to that surface level, which is getting away from something. So, why do you want to do this? Well, I'm being kept up at night thinking about all of this
I
stuff.
don't want to be stressed out anymore.
I'm stressed out. Exactly. Yeah. So that's where their focus is. And so when they hear, why do you want to do this? That kind of becomes where their focus is. And so, I'm actually excited to help our listeners hear how to shift that for their clients into, no, we don't really want to figure out what brought you here. I mean, it's good to know, but we want to figure out what will keep you going when you hit these pits that we were talking about a second ago.
Yeah. It's really important because you're right. Like those surface level answers, anytime that I bring this up with people, it's almost always the same, which is like you mentioned, like, I don't want to be feeling like I have sleepless nights anymore. I don't want to be stressed out anymore. I just want to be able to do the things I want to do, kind of thing. Like it's always those things, which, hey, like those are good reasons. Not gonna lie, they're good reasons, but they are surface level. And the surface level stuff, like, it's not going to be good enough, because when you're in that moment of when something happens, like a job loss or a car breakdown, or it's like a major financial setback, and it wasn't a part of your vision or your goals or whatever it might be, you're going to ask yourself a question subconsciously, or maybe even consciously. And the question always is like, why the hell am I even doing this?
Is it worth it?
Is it worth it? Right? And if you come up with an answer that's like, well, I wanted to do this so that I wouldn't be so stressed out about money. Well, in that moment, you're probably going to be really stressed about money. So you're going to throw your hands up and be like, see, I knew this wasn't going to work. This has happened every single time I've ever tried to do this, and it never happens. So I'm just not going to worry about it anymore. Like, I put in all this time, all this energy, all this effort, and this is what I get. No worries. I'm just going to go back to what I was doing before. I'm not going to be paying attention to it anymore because it's stressing me out. And at least what I had then was just some form of like blissful ignorance, to where I just kind of accept my fate and I just live my life, and it is what it is. And then they just stop, and that's what happens to too many people too often.
You said that with such passion that it's almost as if you've been through that before.
I have.
I know. I can tell. I'm going to just for fun, throw a positive spin onto that and say that on the other side of things, if somebody comes to you and their reason is because they're stressed and they have, these sleepless nights, etc., and they work with you for, I don't know, let's just say 3 months, and all of a sudden they aren't stressed and they're not having those sleepless nights, that will be a really good indicator for them to go, I've got this under control. I don't need to do this anymore, if that was their why. But that pit hasn't hit yet, right? And so that's the other side of things. Is I said I was going to make it positive, and here I threw a pit in there. But it's that idea that actually those things have gone away. And now I all of a sudden think I've got this under control. And so I'm going to stop doing the things that have helped me get to this spot. And then it inevitably will turn into mush again. So there's that side of things as well. I'm wondering, and maybe you don't want to go there yet, but I would really like to know if you've had, not if, I know you have, what are some of the most inspiring whys that you've gotten out of some of your clients?
Well, let me pull up my Rolodex here.
I know, I totally just threw that to you out of nowhere, but I do think, Cody, that is somewhere that we haven't gone in this discussion before. And I just think it would be good for our listeners to kind of hear some of those deeper layer whys that have come about.
Yeah. So this is with a client, And I absolutely love working with this client. A little bit about them. We had our initial consultation. She was under just like an immense amount of just stress, shame, guilt. And she even, kind of put it on herself. She felt like a burden to her family, all these other types of things, right? And when I initially, did my whole pitch of like the coaching and all that kinds of stuff, she initially actually told me no. And then I was like, okay, no sweat, and I told her, I was like, why don't you just take the rest of the day to think about it and get back to me before this time if you decide to change your mind. And I sent her a video to watch and, told her to, look into things and whatnot. And she ended up coming back and she said, you know what? I'm going to do it because what I'm doing right now isn't working and I can't keep living this way, kind of thing. So that's how we got started. And Maria, I'm not kidding you. I've been working with her for 5 months now. We have had 9 sessions, including our consultation together. And every single session, she has cried. Every single one. Now, some of them are because she's crying about her current situation. Those were like the earlier sessions, right? But now she's crying because things are going so well and she can't believe it. And she says to me after every session for the last like 3 months, she's been saying to me, I can't believe I almost didn't do this.
How beautiful. Yeah.
So that's a little bit about her. But just kind of knowing that kind of backstory about her and how it's affecting her so deeply. I'll share with you her initial why, which was, when I asked her, I was like, well, why do you want to become debt free? And she literally said, I want to be able to sleep at night and be able to breathe. That was her initial why. And then after we did some digging with an exercise that I do to help people kind of pull this out of them, this was the answer that we kind of found together. It's a little bit lengthy, but
it's okay.
But this is what it is. Okay, so it says, I want to become debt free because it is my duty to myself and my family to experience the quality of life that we have always dreamed of, and finally breathe. It is then that I can become the real me, someone who's strong, confident, and collected. And with that, I will craft a new family legacy rich in opportunity and abundance, and my kids can look at me as a role model who is a conqueror of trials, and then I will undeniably know that I am a damn good mother.
Love it.
Yeah.
Mic
That's
drop.
way more powerful than
absolutely.
I just want to sleep and breathe.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, and in that, what's interesting is even on the days where she can't sleep and breathe, if she's going towards that end goal, it's I don't even know how to say it. It's so much more powerful. Like there will be days even on her journey towards that. And I think the other thing too is that I use the word end goal, and that's what stopped me, because it's not really even an end goal. It is a culmination of who she is day in and day out till the day that she dies. It's not an end goal unless you say that the end of her life is the end of that goal. Do you know where I'm going with that? So it is, so she will have sleepless nights in there. Whether or not she has debt, she will have sleepless nights. There will be times when she worries. As a mom, she's going to worry about her children, about other things. There will be all of that stress in there, but she's really honed in on who it is that she was created to be. And I think she even used words like that in there. So, So yeah, that's so much more powerful.
Yeah. And I think that if you're cool with it, I almost feel like I want to like kind of give like a 30,000 foot view of like the process of maybe helping people find a why like that.
Of course, I'm fine with it. Yeah, I would have asked you, but I didn't want you to have to give away all your intellectual property. So
yeah, no,
whatever
I think
you're
it's okay. I mean, you could call it intellectual property, but at the same time, I think that there's a level of listening skills
Of course.
and intuition
Yeah.
that you build as a skill the
That's
more
right.
that you do this, right?
Yeah.
So like the first time you try and do it, you're probably not going to be very good at it.
Yeah.
I wasn't very good at it, but the more and more that I did it, the better I got at it, kind of thing.
And the better results came for your clients, which this is a great example of.
Yeah. So my whole process is, and I lay this out for them. I tell them, I'm like, listen, I'm just going to ask you a really simple question at first. You're going to give me an answer, and I'm going to take your answer. I'm going to ask you another question, and then you're going to give me another answer. I'm going to take your answer. I'm going to ask you another question. And we're just going to keep doing that dance really until I feel like stopping. And then they laugh. And I'm like, no, seriously, until I feel like stopping.
I'm actually going to hit pause here for just a second, if I may, and ask. First of all, I think it's so cool that you actually have like a Rolodex of this information. Because you didn't know I was going to ask you that question, and you still were able to pull that out of absolute thin air, it felt like. So I do want to ask you, do you just make note of the first and final responses, or do you actually still have all of this?
I have all the layers.
Down? Okay. All right. Ready, set, go.
Yep.
Pause is off. It's all yours.
Yep. So the process that I do is I ask them that initial question, why do you want me to become debt free? And then they give me an answer.
Do you only ask them that? I'm sorry. Do you only ask them that if that's one of the things they want to do? I know most of your clients are people who want to get out of debt. But I know you probably work with some who aren't. So you just go with what their initial statement is. Why do you want to X? Okay.
Yep. So for example, like I think it was like 2 weeks ago or something, I did this exercise with a couple that wanted to do real estate investing.
Okay.
And the question in that regard was, why do you want to invest into real estate?
Perfect. Okay. Thing, right? Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But when they give me their response, I listen for key words or key phrases that they say. So for example, she said, I want to be able to sleep well at night and be able to breathe. And I take that and I go, okay, so you said that you want to be able to breathe. So let's paint a picture here and let's say that you do get things to a place to where you can breathe. What would that do for you? Kind of thing. And then they'll give me another answer. And I'll just listen for those keywords and key phrases and I'll spin it in a, hey, I'm taking what you said, but I'm painting a positive light here. And what does that look like? Or how does that affect you? Or what does this mean to you? Or, whatever it might be, kind of thing, right? And then in the process of doing that, I underline those keywords and phrases every time they give me an answer, because those are like almost little pieces to a bigger puzzle kind of thing. And then once I feel like we've gotten enough of those pieces and I really understand like what they're trying to say, that's where I pause and I say, okay, give me a few minutes. I'm going to kind of collect my thoughts here and I'm going to put these pieces together kind of thing. So I usually ask them, I say, this is the most important question. What's your favorite song right now? And then I'll play a song for them as I'm putting this together kind of thing. And that's just my thing because, music's a big part for me, right? And then I'll come back and I'll explain to them the whole process of what we did and how, because I asked questions based off of their answers, that basically means that all of those answers and all those questions are then connected in some way. So really, any answer that they gave me at any point could have actually gone back and answered that first question.
Sure.
Why do you want to become debt free? But I was just taking the best pieces and putting it all together. And then I just condense it into one why statement. And then I share it with them and ask them what they think about it, if it resonates with them. And, if it's awesome and it rocks them to their core, great, we got it. And I asked them, like, is there anything in here that you feel like you don't resonate with, or that you want to change or you want to take out or add in or anything like that? And then we get the final product and boom, we found it kind of thing. So that's kind of the whole process of how I help people find their why.
Yeah. So in the one that you read to us, did you pen that or did they? Were you okay, so I didn't use the word author on purpose because they authored it as they were answering your questions. But did you pen it? Are you the one who, when you put all those pieces together, you wrote out that specific statement and then she gave her stamp of approval on that.
Yeah. A
Okay.
good way of thinking about this is this. She's the author, I'm the editor, kind of thing. So to answer your question, yes, that was something that, I underlined: able to breathe, quality of life she dreams of, proud, confident, real me. I underlined legacy, opportunity, abundance, wisdom, all these different types of things, right? And then with those things, I just put it together myself and then gave her this, and she loved it. She cried. Like that's what she does. In fact, we joke about it at this point. She's like, I'm really going to try not to cry today. And it always happens. But to answer your question, yes, I was the one who helped put it all together.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Did she edit it at all? I mean, I know you were the editor, but did she change anything to it? Okay, perfect.
No, I asked her and she said, no, I love it exactly how it is.
And then what does she do with it? Do you print it and hand it to her? I mean, I know you're virtual, but do you somehow print that up and then get it in her hand so she can look at that and remind herself? Or is it just something that you kind of have in your Rolodex and remind her of when necessary?
So I send it to them in writing via email.
Okay.
And then I tell them that before the next session that we have, I want them to physically write it out, not type it up and print it out, but I want them to physically write it out. And I want them to hang it up somewhere in their home that's like severely in the way. Like it's going to be impossible for them not to see it. And I tell them every day until this is done, I want them to verbally speak this out. And that's how they can use it.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, this has been really, really good. I think there's so much value in here. Hopefully our listeners are hitting pause and rewinding and writing down some of that stuff and then practicing, because like you said, this is something that will take skill. Yes, it's technically not a formula, but you've given them information, a process on how to do this. But the real magic, if you will, has been in the way that you're able to identify what's super important to them, reframe those questions for them, and draw out of them those different layers. And then, like you said, actually put it all together for them. So there's a lot of art here that's happening. And, that doesn't mean that our listeners can't do it. It just means that it will be a skill that needs to be practiced and honed. So hopefully they can write down some of the skeletal outline that you've provided and then practice. And I will tell each and every one of our listeners today that this sounds kind of dumb, but just trust me. You don't have to practice on clients. Excuse me. So sorry. You can actually practice on your spouse. You can practice on your kids. And it's not about finding out what their why is, for becoming debt free, but actually practice finding something that they are interested in and drawing that out of them with questionings, like a line of questioning like this. And that will hone your skill. And then you'll feel a lot more confident doing that with your clients.
Absolutely. It's a good idea. Good idea for sure. So give it a shot, guys. If you haven't done this before, maybe try incorporating it. I think that it can really bring a lot of value to your clients. Like a ton, So with that being said, we just appreciate you listening to another episode of ours, and we hope to see you on the next one as well. So we'll catch you guys next week. And thanks again for listening to the Financial Coaches Podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Financial Coaches Podcast, brought to you by New Money Habits and Sizemore Financial Coaching. Submit your questions to our hosts by emailing podcast@newmoneyhabits.com. Be sure to subscribe to be notified of future episodes and join our growing group of like-minded coaches on Facebook. And until next time, happy coaching.